Harley-Davidson has a long and storied history. Heritage, Americana, military-industrial complex, blah, blah, blah. Boring, right? They're big, slow pigs that cost 100 times their weight in their forged steel. We all know the story, so let's cut the chit-chat and get right to the cringe era for a good old-fashioned roast sesh. By the late 1960s, Harley-Davidson was being crushed by the Japanese motorcycle manufacturers, most notably Honda, who was giving just about every brand a run for their money with the CB750 that was faster, more reliable, and cheaper than almost every other motorcycle available. While the rest of the big four decided to adapt and innovate, Harley decided to hemorrhage cash to the point of near extinction, and they likely would have if it weren't for a fairy godmother who descended down from the great Dick Sporting Goods in the sky, bearing bountiful amounts of sports and recreation capital. I'm talking about AMF. AMF, or American Machine and Foundry, bought Harley-Davidson for an undisclosed amount of money in 1969, but it was speculated to be for nearly $20 million, which, adjusted for inflation, is like $500 billion. Just kidding, it's not that much. For a motorcycle company that was in rapid decline, AMF must have seen a lot of value in the brand. And to circle back, I'm not even kidding about the sporting goods thing. AMF made a name for themselves through the manufacturing and sale of bowling equipment and revitalized the bowling industry through their automated pin setters. Oh, and around that same time, they also had AMF Atomics that made low-dose irradiation equipment, aka nuclear reactors. What? AMF is like the shadowy umbrella company in a dystopian movie that makes everything from fighter jets to baby food. Really weird. Kids these days make all their money on YouTube and TikTok. Back in my day, we had to pick up ourselves by our bootstraps and manufacture the finest automated bowling pin setters and also low irradiation nuclear equipment to earn a buck. Frickin' millennials. After amassing tons of discrete cash from questionable sources, AMF leaned into the sporting goods angle and made bicycles, skis, scuba gear, and the pretzel bender, which, for those who are not familiar with the Bavarian treat, is an automated pretzel twisting machine that was able to fold and bend up to 50 pretzels a minute. So, let's recap. They made more bowling equipment, tennis rackets, nuclear reactors, bicycles, pretzel benders, and a few more nuclear reactors until by 1969 they said, failing motorcycle company, let's dip our greasy little bowling ball fingers into that pot as well. And they did. They took control of a failing motorcycle company who was already experimenting with outsourcing and rebranding cheaply made small displacement bikes, and instead of reinvesting in research and development to improve the motorcycles and gain natural growth, they laid off employees, continued to outsource labor, made crappy, unreliable, and frankly downright weird motorcycles, and slapped the Harley-Davidson logo on just about everything they could. Prior to being purchased by AMF, Harley-Davidson had purchased a 50% share of the Italian motorcycle company Aermacchi. This relationship would continue throughout the AMF years before Aermacchi would ultimately be sold to Cagiva in 1978. But before then, Harley-Davidson, quote-unquote, made the 350 Sprint SS. The Sprint was just an entirely Aermacchi designed and built motorcycle that bore Harley-Davidson branding. In the late 60s, the Sprint was actually kind of successful in Grand Prix motorcycle racing, but it didn't seem to matter because none of the technology made it down to the bikes that were actually sold in dealerships. This 350 had a 344cc push-rod single-cylinder four-stroke engine that made about 25 horsepower. It was a small roadster that only weighed about 325 pounds, but that is because it had nothing on it. No electric start, no turn signals, and cheap suspension. And not to mention the Kickstarter was on the left side and the gear shift was on the right. To just really drive home the fact that this motorcycle was not made in Milwaukee. Meanwhile, Honda and Yamaha were making 350 class motorcycles that were literally better in every single way. And the Springer 350 was considered to be somewhat of a failure. You know, we don't mess around with crap bikes here at YamiNoob.co, so let me take a minute to fill you in on our exciting Black Friday event. Check this out.
Guys, the holiday season is upon us, and I wanted to do something special for my sweet little squids to show you just how much you mean to me. We got a crazy promotion going on right now at shop.YamiNoob.co, and it starts with this, the Honda Hornet. You may be familiar with this Honda Hornet as it was the original YamiNoob bike giveaway in 2019. We bought it back from the winner, we restored it, and now I'm giving it away again. But only until Cyber Monday. That's right, for the first time ever, we're doing something special for Black Friday and Cyber Monday, but you only have 5 days to get entered to win this fantastic giveaway. I'm also going to sweeten the pot and give you guys 10x entries for every dollar you spend over on shop.YamiNoob.co for your chosen sweepstakes. There's no special promotional code, nothing you got to do. Simply shop over at shop.YamiNoob.co and you'll get automatically added for those 10x entries and entered for this giveaway. But it's Cyber Week, folks, and for this bike that started it all, I'm not stopping there. For the first time ever, we're doing second and third place prizes as well. So the first place winner will be getting this Honda Hornet delivered straight to their door, but second place is actually going to win a trip out here to Austin to ride with us in the hills. Choose whatever Yamanu bike from the fleet you want, and we'll spend the whole day riding. Third place is going to win a special limited edition poster signed by yours truly. We're never printing it again, and you're not going to want to miss it. It's a once-in-a-lifetime Yamanu event so historic, we are calling it the Cyber Week Giveaway Extravaganza. It's a very short window to get entered to win on this giveaway, so make sure you head over to shop.yamanu.co and pick out something you like. You'll get 10x entries and automatically entered for this Honda Hornet giveaway. This bike belongs to the people, and I would be remiss to keep it in my stable. It belongs with you guys. If ever there's a giveaway you did not want to miss out on, it is this one. You only have 5 days to get entered to win. Head over to shop.yamanu.co and don't delay.
In the late 1960s and early 70s, Harley again used their Italian allies to produce a motorcycle that was unlike what they had been known for previously. Small trail dirt bikes were becoming increasingly popular, so Harley-Davidson, at their Ermacchi facility in Italy, produced the Baja 100. The Baja 100 was the bike for the factory desert race team that's raced in Southern California. The team actually had quite a few wins, and the Baja 100 piqued market interest. But unfortunately, just like the Sprint 350, the Baja that was sold in dealerships was far less equipped than the ones ridden by the pros. The bike was odd and made very little power from its 100cc single. It handled poorly and was weird looking with the street bike handlebar and massive rear sprocket. It didn't take long for customers to realize that just like every other motorcycle Harley-Davidson seemed to sell during this time, that they would just be better off buying a motorcycle from a Japanese manufacturer. Can you see the trend? Like, I understand the sentiment is still the same amongst fast boy motorcyclists of today, that they don't understand why someone would buy Harley-Davidson when they could get a cheaper, better, faster bike from anywhere else, but to play devil's advocate, at least the motorcycles HD makes today are good for what they're intending to be. Like the Pan America is a pretty good ADV bike. They didn't just outsource a weird Chinese ADV and slap the bar and shield all over it, which is equivalent to the way they operated during the 1970s. If you thought the Baja 100 was a poor attempt at an off-road motorcycle, just you wait. You gotta take a look at the 1975 Harley-Davidson MX250. This one is something else. Rear forks, man. It has forks in both the front and the rear. Why? I literally cannot fathom why that would be something that someone somewhere felt to be a smart engineering decision. And when you read about the bike, historical views say things like, it actually worked quite well. Buddy, if it worked so well, then why was it on the bike for only 2 years, and why do no other motorcycles have forks in the rear? That weird Tom Cruise has the Virus or whatever it has, that's front and rear swing arms, which is also kind of weird. But it seems to make more sense than having 2 sets of forks. I just can't handle this thing, man. It looks like a Mad Max motorcycle made out of spare parts that you battered together for a few Nuka-Colas. It also made use of a drum brake in the front while having a disc brake in the rear, which is odd and a little bit backwards. If you couldn't guess already, this bike was not a smashing success in motocross, although it did compete in the Baja races, and Bruce Ogilvie won first place in 1975 while riding a Harley-Davidson MX250. AMF probably paid the other competitors to throw the race while using all of their Iraqi nuclear reactor money. A 1975 prototype of this bike was one of the first 100 models ever made, actually recently sold for $20,000, which is pretty ridiculous. It's starting to get pretty cold in some parts of the US these days, so you might be putting up for your greasy shovelhead chopper project for winter and instead pulling out your trusty sled. For a short time in history, AMF did not want you to have to make a compromise and settle for an inferior non-Harley-Davidson snowmobile made from a company who actually knows what they're doing, and instead sold their own. AMF had been manufacturing snowmobiles prior to acquiring Harley-Davidson, so it was easy enough to just slap the branding on. Prior to the rebranding, one of the AMF-made snowmobiles was called the Skedaddler. Not a joke. The Skedaddler. Was Ned Flanders the head of marketing on this one? It's completely ridiculous. So anyway, snowmobiles were sold under the Harley-Davidson umbrella between 1971 and 1975, with total production of only around 10,000 units. And collectors actually go nuts for these things. They're like early NFTs. It's dumb, no one wants it or needs it, but scarcity makes it valuable. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. In 1971, they made the Y400, which had a 398cc engine that was pushing around 30 ponies. In 1972, they used the Y450, which had a 433cc engine, making a little bit more power. The engines used were hand-selected from the finest stock of parallel twin two-stroke engines from their Italian stepchildren, Ermacchi. The Harley snowmobiles were pretty bad and not up to the standards of other companies, and since they were just rebranding AMF sleds, it was just a cash grab that didn't take. They stopped selling them in 1975, so yeah, obviously this isn't a snowmobile channel, so I apologize for the little detour, but this was just too funny to not include. And it was also fitting because as Yami Noob is not a snowmobile channel, Harley-Davidson was not a snowmobile company. Does art imitate life or does life imitate art? Let me know down in the comments. We may not talk much about snowmobiles on here, but you know what we do talk about? Golf carts, of course. Can you tell where this is headed? AMF Harley-Davidson golf carts, baby. According to the golf cart historians at golfcartgarage.com, Harley started selling golf carts in 1963. The original model was a three-wheeler that had a 245cc dual-stroke engine. They eventually turned into electric golf carts, and that's all I'm gonna say. I can't keep up the golf cart gag any longer. But guess what? These are also sought after by collectors, and also guess what? People collect golf carts. Who knew? Okay, I'm done. One of the most notable motorcycles to come out during the AMF Harley-Davidson years was the FX Super Glide. This was the first bike to combine elements of the smaller Sportster models and the chassis of a big twin. It was the precursor to the FXR, FXDX, Dyna Super Glide, and all those other bikes that SoCal Dyna Bros and Sons of Anarchy cosplayers enjoy so much. The original FX, which stood for Factory Experimental, that doesn't make sense, but I know that's what my sources tell me, came out in 1971. It used the chassis and the shovelhead engine of the FLH Electric Glide mated with the forks off of an XLH Sportster. All the remaining bits and bobs were plucked from one or two other motorcycles. While this bike was an important stepping stone for HD, it also fell victim to one of the brand's most cringeworthy missteps. The 1977 Harley-Davidson Confederate Edition. Following the Bicentennial Liberty Edition motorcycles from the year prior, the Confederate Edition spanned across platforms and yielded 631 total models. These bikes were outfitted in ultra-cringe Confederate livery and had equally cringe promotional materials. At the time, the Confederate Edition bikes were well received, but ultimately the consensus was, yeah, this isn't a very good look, we should stop this, and never made any more Confederate-themed motorcycles or products. Ironically, or maybe not ironic at this point, I can't tell, the Confederate Edition Harley-Davidsons are some of the most rarest and well sought after by collectors. You would not catch me on any Confederate-themed motorcycle, I'll tell you that right now. Ultimately, Vaughn Beals and Willie G. Davidson bought the company back from AMF with the intentions to save the company. Then they cried to Reagan that the Big Four were making it too hard to sell bikes because they were just too good, reliable, and expensive, so he imposed a bunch of import tariffs on motorcycles larger than 700 cc's, and Harley-Davidson has been climbing that American freedom ladder ever since. Good thing for those bootstraps. Thanks for watching, subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you later. Fact! In 1986, two Russian airline pilots got into an argument over whether one could land the plane without vision. The main pilot pulled the curtains over the windows, insisting he could. Then the plane, missing the runway, flipped and killed 70 of his passengers. That's yeet energy taken too far. Goodbye.
Well, look at you. You've made it to the end of another Yami Noob video. You should consider yourself pretty lucky because I have curated this one right over here for you to continue watching. It's probably just as good as the one you just saw. Unless you hated the one you just saw. I don't know, maybe leave me a comment down below about how much you hated it as well too. Or just keep watching this one. Make sure you keep watching Yami Noob. Don't forget to keep watching Yami Noob. That's the most important thing. Keep watching Yami Noob.